Welcome to American Catechism and Stab the Dragon Productions, coming to you from Fort Worth, Texas on Labor Day weekend. This is Sunday, August 31st, 2025, where it is the day before opening day for dove season in Texas. It is currently 86 degrees and raining lightly. We're celebrating Labor Day, perhaps the oddest holiday in America, and one of two semi-communist holidays that we celebrate. This is neither a patriotic holiday nor a religious holiday, but again, it's got some Marxist roots going back to the late 19th century. The labor movement, it was kind of a difficult mash between being Marxist inspired and yet also being actually needed in response to the excesses of big business and capitalism. In my opinion, both the Marxists and laissez-faire capitalists who either worship the state and centralized economic planning, or the libertarians who worship the individual, fail at the biblical and theological level by not recognizing the fallen sinful nature of man and what that does to the workplace. Biblical principles for the state and the economy and work are in Scripture and could greatly help our situation today. So, to celebrate Labor Day this year, I've chosen to watch and review On the Waterfront, starring Marlon Brando, a movie about labor unions and the mob on the docks of Hoboken, New Jersey in the 1940s and 50s. And to go along with this review, I'll be drinking Old Granddad Bourbon, a bourbon that was popular back in that time. And I've got an old-fashioned here made from Old Granddad that we'll be sipping on. On to the movie. Just the facts. This is a crime drama movie from 1954, produced by Sam Spiegel, directed by Elia Kazan, written by Bud Schulberg, starring Marlon Brando, Carl Malden, Rod Steiger, Lee Cobb, and Eva Marie Saint. Music is by Leonard Bernstein. This runs for 108 minutes. It's in black and white. Had a budget of $910,000 and it made $9.6 million at the box office. And it won 8 Academy Awards. The plot. The story is about the corrupt longshoremen union leaders with mob relations in Hoboken, New Jersey in the late 40s and early 50s. Terry Malloy, a dock worker who had been a promising prize fighter, is being used by the corrupt union boss / mobster, Johnny Friendly, and Terry's own brother, Charlie the Gent Malloy, to assist in the murder of Terry's friend Joey Doyle for being a canary and singing to the labor inspectors about the criminal activities of the union. Terry is confronted by Joey's grieving sister, Edie, and by the local priest, Father Barry. The movie portrays Terry's slow conversion from being a cynical, self-centered bum into a man of courage and conviction as he gradually stands up to the corrupt union bosses. And it's also a love story between Terry and Edie. While the story and characters are themselves fictional, it is actually based on a real expose of the criminal acts of the union in Hoboken, published in the New York Sun newspaper in 1948 by reporter Malcolm Johnson, Crime on the Waterfront, for which he won a Pulitzer Prize. Why should you watch this movie? American Catechism is a vlog about studying American history, politics, culture, theology, and whiskey. I do movie reviews of culturally and historically significant movies. Some are historically based, like The Alamo. Some are more just classic great movies, like The Maltese Falcon. And some are a mix of the two, like On the Waterfront. And I also throw in a study of some of the holidays, such as the current one, Labor Day. This holiday and the movie point to a critical theme in our nation's history for the past 150 years, the labor movement. The movie sheds some light on one of the aspects of the labor movement: crime, corruption, oppression, and mafia ties. While the labor movement has done a ton of good in this country for the average worker, it also has done a lot of harm at times. When you understand the background of the movie, you'll see that the movie itself and its director are tied to exposing communism in the film industry. So the movie has a direct link to the politics of the day, the McCarthy era. This movie is also critical for understanding the history and cultural impact of the art of making movies and the art of acting. It is considered one of the finest films ever made, winning 8 Oscars. Very popular with the public, this movie is one of the most explicitly Christian movies of the era, with Carl Malden's role as Father Barry, bringing his faith into the dirty world of the dock workers who were suffering greatly from their own union bosses. This was a powerful film. If you want to watch a moving, meaningful movie that depicts faith, conversion, courage, and honesty standing up against corruption and crime, this is a great film classic. I gave it a score of 96, letter grade of A+. My recommendation: this is the type of movie that every generation should watch and learn from. Especially if you're a high school or college drama student, this movie is a must-see. I would also say that every Christian minister should watch this movie and grow a backbone. We live in an age of corruption in high places, whether government, education, big pharma, military, the churches, you name it. This movie speaks to this age, even though it's 70 years old. On to the details. Historical accuracy. Generally based on the real problems of the unions on the docks of Hoboken, New Jersey, as reported on in the New York Sun series Crime on the Waterfront by Malcolm Johnson. Again, he won a 1949 Pulitzer. This movie, made on location in Hoboken, there you go, in 1954, portrays the harsh work conditions of the longshoremen, their poverty under the rich union bosses, and the gritty times in which they lived. For historical accuracy, I give it 19 out of 20. Production background. The original script was written by playwright Arthur Miller, a friend of Kazan's who turned against him because of his cooperation with the HUAC. That's the House Un-American Activities Committee in the House of Representatives, Congress. The producers wanted Miller to change his script to be more pro-America and anti-communist, but Miller notably refused. His script was dropped, and Schulberg was hired to become the writer. The film cannot be separated from the political context of the McCarthy era and that House Committee on Un-American Activities, which was a congressional investigation of communism in Hollywood and government in the late 1930s through the 60s. It lasted into the 60s, even into the 70s. While the work of the committee was largely vilified at the time and ever since, over the years it was proven to be soundly based. Elia Kazan had cooperated with the committee and released several names from Hollywood that were communist or had communist ties. And for this, Kazan was deeply held in contempt by his critics. The high quality of the film, but the public reaction and even the reactions of the Hollywood elites with 8 Oscars vindicated him. Marlon Brando originally was chosen for the lead role. Kazan had worked with him 2 years earlier on A Streetcar Named Desire, but Brando then turned it down. Frank Sinatra accepted the role, but didn't sign a contract yet, and Kazan persuaded Spiegel and Brando's agent, Spiegel's the producer, to hire Brando, who was persuaded by his agent to sign. And this infuriated Sinatra. This was also actress Eva Maria Saint's debut film, and she got an Oscar out of the deal. So for production background, 5 out of 5 points. Set, scenery, wardrobe. The movie was filmed in just 36 days and included being on location in the docks, workers' slums, bars, alleys, and rooftops, and the real churches they worshiped in at Hoboken. The scenery is the real environment the dock workers saw and were filmed in, and it was filmed in winter when it was very cold. The wardrobes were clearly of the times that they portrayed. The pigeon coops on the roof are accurate and representative of the times. In total, it presents a pretty bleak background. For set, scenery, and wardrobe, 10 out of 10 points. Music. The music was written by Leonard Bernstein and was nominated for an Academy Award. It didn't win this one. We found the music, though, to be perfect for the story, the setting, and the action. It was very well done. 14 out of 15 points for music. The storyline and plot. I'm going to cover this by pointing out various scenes throughout the movie, and they're not necessarily in chronological order. The opening scene with the murder of Joey was pretty shocking for the viewers and for Terry Malloy, who didn't realize that he had just set up his friend for a fall. The use of a pigeon in that scene was significant because a stool pigeon refers to a public informer. Although the term stool pigeon is not used in the movie, the word canary is used. The scene in the bar with all the bosses counting their money and dividing their spoils taken from the poor, hardworking dock workers was also shocking and designed to show their callous greed, every bit as bad as any rich capitalist portrayed as evil by other Hollywood movies. And then the scene of the work morning crew as they showed up for work, and the dock boss is calling off names and he's giving chits that gives that worker permission to go work. And at the end, he's got a handful of chits and he just tosses them on the ground, and he watches the guys scramble and fight, wrestle to get a hold of one of the few chits so they could work that day. They're trying to survive, trying to support their family, and they have to fight for these chits. That was dehumanizing in every way possible, and the dock boss just stood there laughing at his own men. The grief of Joey's father after Joey's death is matched by his desperation to work, as he shows up at the dock the next day after his son's murder. He gives Joey's jacket to a friend who needed a better jacket, showing the generosity of the poor workers contrasting with the greed of the union bosses. Edie Doyle, sister of Joey, harnesses her grief into anger as she seeks to find her brother's killers. The gradual building of a love story with Terry Malloy is a poignant one as she forsakes going back to college to find the truth and find love. To watch Terry Malloy fall in love with Edie was an amazing thing because he was so hardened and cynical. He used to be a professional boxer. 3 to 4 scenes with Terry and Edie stand out in my mind. First was the walk through the park when she drops her glove and he picks it up, cleans it off, and then places it on his hand while he's sitting on a swing. In the movie notes we watched at the end of the DVD, we learned that the scene was basically ad-libbed by Brando, and Kazan kept it. And the next scene was Terry and Edie in the bar, and he buys her a drink. She's so innocent, coming from Catholic schools, taught by the nuns, yet she daringly drinks a shot of whiskey, meeting him where he is without judgment. Then there was the church scene, where the Union ruffians interrupted the discussion led by Father Barry, Carl Malden, and Terry takes Edie out the back way to escape danger. And of course there was the alley scene where Terry finds his murdered brother hanging on a hook, and then the mobsters try to run down he and Edie with the truck. That scene was definitely one of the film noir types of scenes, even though this movie is not a noir. But probably the two most amazing and moving scenes. The one in the taxi with Terry and Charlie, his brother, sitting there in the taxi discussing the situation because Terry has been subpoenaed. He's planning, or he's trying to decide whether he should testify or not. And his brother's trying to persuade him not to testify. and pulls out a gun and points it at his own brother. Brando again ad-libs the scene and just slowly puts his finger on the barrel and moves the gun aside and is just talking to Terry, or talking to Charlie, his brother, saying, look, you should have been watching after me. And he describes his last professional fight where he took a fall at the insistence of Charlie so that they could win a bet. And his reply to Charlie was, I could have had class. I could have been a contender, been somebody instead of a bum. That scene was just amazing. He now realizes that even his brother has been so corrupted by the union bosses that he sold Terry out. We also see a moment of salvation for Charlie, who turns the gun around, hands it to Terry, knowing that when he reports back to Johnny Friendly, the result will be his own death. And indeed it was. After Terry's testimony in court, he goes home, goes back on the roof to check on his pigeons with Edie, and he finds that his young teen friend that he had been kind of mentoring had killed all his pigeons because he had testified in court. And it shows how far down and low the corruption of the union system went. Then there's the fight scene at the dock. It was inevitable after the courtroom scene, but the moment of triumph when Terry rises and staggers into the warehouse and the crowd of workers follow him, not Johnny Friendly. That's an amazing scene. But another scene earlier, the role of Father Barry in this movie was also staggering because it shows a Catholic priest who walks out of the safety of the four walls of the church and into the dangerous land of the oppressed dock workers. The sermon he preaches in the hold of that ship over the dead body of the Canary was simply amazing. I came away with my faith being challenged and longing to see that kind of courage and faith displayed in my own Baptist circles. So for plot and story, 20 out of 20. Acting. The acting in this movie was also amazing. All up and down the list of actors, it was superb. Of course, Brando wins an Oscar that year as Best Actor. His first Oscar, although he had been nominated for A Streetcar Named Desire back in 1951. But his method acting was proven to be outstanding and made this movie a turning point in the making of movies and of acting. That scene in the cab with Charlie is simply one of the finest scenes in film history. Eva Marie Saint also won an Oscar, and it's her debut film, Best Supporting Actress. Carl Malden was nominated for Best Supporting Actor and should have won, for his role was simply amazing as the priest who stood for truth and went down and helped his flock in the midst of gangsters and criminals. The gangster Lee Cobb, who played Johnny Friendly, and Rod Steiger as Charlie the Gent Malloy, they were gangsters. They were as gangster as it gets, straight out of film noir. The production crew hired many actual dock workers as the extras in the movie, and that made the movie all the more authentic. Here's an aside that my wife pointed out to me. There was a very tall actor in there. That was Fred Gwynn. He had a bit role as one of the gangsters, Slim. Gwynn would be better known later as Herman Munster on the TV show The Munsters in the 1960s. So for acting, 15 out of 15. Special effects. Now, one reason I love these old movies is that the movie stands or falls on the writing, directing, acting, the dialogue, not on special effects. So many movies of today rely solely on special effects to wow the audience. The lighting in this movie is at times, again, similar to noir, and the use of fog and the weather, all that was natural. The murder of Joey was the only really special stunt or effect that I saw. The film is all about the drama, the dialogue, the acting. Special effects, 8 out of 10. Bonus points, everything about this movie I loved. So 5 out of 5 bonus points, giving me a total score of 96. And a letter grade for importance and enjoyability, A+. Analysis and recommendation. This is one of the best films I have ever watched. And I wish that I had watched it 50 years ago. Born out of the tempestuous McCarthy era and the HUAC as being based on real crime and corruption, probably, or the problem in Hoboken on the docks, this movie is incredibly alive with meaning and significance. The Christian faith of Father Barry is like a searchlight in a dark, stormy night. The acting, I've never seen Marlon Brando before. I've never seen a Marlon Brando movie. I know. And now I'm a huge fan. How can we awaken the younger generation to the greatness of the movies of the golden age of Hollywood? I think this is the type of movie that every generation should watch and learn from, especially if you're a high school or college drama student. This movie is a must-see. I would also say that every Christian minister should watch this movie and grow a backbone. We live in an age of corruption in high places, whether it's big government, education, big pharma, the military, the church. This movie speaks to our age, even though it's 70 years old. In conclusion, this is the month of September starting tomorrow, which means it's National Bourbon Heritage Month. So I'll be focused on reviewing some popular Kentucky bourbons and maybe some lesser-known Texas bourbons. I'll start with the one I've been sipping on tonight, Old Granddad. So, this is an American Catechism for Stab the Dragon Productions and On the Waterfront, out here.